Hello, and welcome back to this channel. So thank you for staying subscribed. This is not going to be a very good video, which seems like the kind of way that I open stuff a lot, but I just can't get a thought out of my head, and I just want to get it on. Apologies for the mouse clicks. This is not. I'm literally just going to yell into a mic about something I've been thinking about right now, and honestly, that might be the way I have to do things going forward on this channel. I'm literally just rushing this together. I'm going to record this. I have some notes, but you've seen the title. You know what this is. It's a passionate defense for Sleep No More, the 2015 Doctor Who episode that uses the found footage gimmick and is written by Mark Gatiss, who we all know can be a little hit or miss. But I love this episode, and I'm going to just... So anyway, this might be the way going forward, because I'd like to make weekly content. I already make a weekly podcast with my brother, and I make a lot of bites. If you're aware of the Bite platform, it's a fun looping video platform that I post content to. I try to post daily. So I already have irons in the fire, and I think that at this point, I just kind of have been feeling, maybe it's, being inside a house, but I just want to make stuff. So that's why, you won't see a video for a year, and then all of a sudden I post, a music video using clips of The Master over a Billie Eilish song.
You should see me in a crowd. I'm gonna run, there's nothing to help.
And then this not too long after. And this isn't even anything. This is barely anything. Okay, I'm gonna stop harping on the video that you haven't even watched yet. And again, video. There's literally not gonna be anything moving on the screen for the most part. Unless I get real wild in the editing booth. Anyway, to make weekly content, I feel like it would be best for me to, just when I have something I want to talk about, plugging in the mic and talking about it. I don't think it, right now, I do not have a capture card, so it's hard for me to get footage of the things I want to talk about. I currently have a project in the works with my brother who I do the podcast with that will be in the works for a while, because I would like to make it something really special, and those kind of longer form projects are great to have in the mind, but I don't think that they can really service a channel. So anyway, I'm rushing through this, but basically, if you're subscribed to this channel and you don't like rushed, thrown together content, I don't know why you subscribe to this channel. That's all it was when I was reviewing Series 11 episodes. By the way, hey, I reviewed every episode of Series 11, a Doctor Who series I don't really like that much on retrospect, and then I didn't review anything from Series 12, a Doctor Who season that I adored greatly, so that's weird. I actually feel a lot more comfortable talking about my thoughts on Series 11, a series I don't care for, because Series 12 is amazing, so don't lump me in with... Whoa. I'm gonna bleep that. So don't lump me in with, the bad fans. We all know who they are, because I love Jodie Whittaker. I love Joe Martin. I actually love Chris Chibnall. He just done a lot of things I really... And Sacha Dhawan. Oh my freaking god. I'm trying not to swear, so there might be some editing jumps where I've bleeped a swear. It's a Doctor Who video. Anyway, I'm going to try to make weekly content on this channel. Maybe not going forward from here. We'll see what happens. This is a fluke. I rewatched... So this is why I'm doing this. I rewatched Sleep No More, a few days ago. And for those who don't know or are unfamiliar, I don't know why you're watching this video, but Sleep No More is a 2015 Doctor Who episode written by Mark Gatiss. It is from Series 9, Peter Capaldi's second series as BBC TV's Doctor Who. It uses a found footage gimmick, and it was very controversial when it came out because it doesn't have the opening titles, which is funny because we've had two of those since, both in the Whittaker era. There's a lot more to be controversial at the time, most of which was bunk. But anyway, I need water. Anyway, Sleep No More is a very highly disliked Doctor Who story. In fact, based on what I understand, a lot of fans hate it. If I'm wrong about that, let me know. And if you love it, pour your love of it in the comments. If you hate it and you disagree with me on each and every point, that's fine. I mean, keep things civil, but feel free to voice your opinion. I don't want to seem like I'm the only opinion, but it's wild to me that this isn't one of those episodes that splits the fan base. I usually only see hate for this. It's usually up there with, In the Forest of the Night and Fear Her and those kind of ones of everyone hates those and there's no middle ground or there's no opposite side of the party. No, I love this one, and not just in a, I think it's I'm actually okay. So here's what happened. I watched Sleep No More, like I said a few days ago, and at the time I was watching it, I was like, why do people hate this episode? I've always enjoyed it a lot, but on this watch, I was like, wow, this is actually like really good. It's not just fun. It's not just like an interesting bit of Doctor Who because of the gimmick or whatever. It's actually really, really smart. And as I was thinking about that over the past few days, it culminated in a tweet from this morning, or this afternoon, I guess, which I'm going to read now. In my opinion, Sleep No More isn't just underrated. It's in fact an absolutely amazing Doctor Who episode. The script is so clever and so gorgeously realized, experimental, and very meta. That'll be important in this discussion. It's a downright travesty that so many Doctor Who fans seem to hate it, and I really, really cannot put into words how much I mean that. It seems like everyone hates this very good episode of Doctor Who, and I don't know why. So this video, as lazy as it is, as thrown together as it is, I hope that it gets shared around, at least a little. Share it with your friend. If you hear this and then rewatch Sleep No More because you want to give it another chance, because I think a lot of people probably saw it at the time. I need more water, sorry. I think a lot of people saw it at the time and thought, oh, I don't like this because it's so different, or because it's got a gimmick, or because of the, bad monster or whatever. Oh, Sleep in Your Eye. I know I made jokes, but, we all have, there's a difference between your opinion when a Doctor Who episode goes out and, like, as you come to appreciate it. Like, a story like, what's a good example? Journey to the Center of the TARDIS. I didn't love it when it came out. In fact, I kind of hated it. But on rewatches, I've actually found a lot to like about it. Nowhere near as good as Sleep No More, but I have found a lot to like about it. Sleep No More, when it first came out, obviously, I was with everybody else. That was you probably just heard my phone go off. If you did, you heard it say, "Who wants a new Wii, huh?"
Who wants a new Wii, huh?
Ah! If you don't know what that is in reference to, go listen to my podcast. It's pretty good. Anyway, it's called More Opinions, and there'll be a link in the description, I hope. Anyway, what was I talking about? When this episode went out, I was like, oh, whoa, so dumb. Sleep, what's next? Boogers for a Doctor Who monster? Oh, what, the sleep in your eye? It's actually really clever that it's the sleep in your eye, and we're going to get to that too. I have notes. This is a shambles, and I kind of don't care because I love this episode and everyone else hates it, and I don't know why. Let's talk about the things people always talk about liking already. First of all, some good scares. They talk about the scene where Deep Ando... By the way, I remember the names of like almost all the guest cast. Chopra, Deep Ando, Nagata, 474, Professor... I can't ever think of Reese Shearsmith's character's name, which is weird because he's my favorite character in it outside of the Doctor. But anyway, I can remember a lot of the characters' name in this Base Under Siege, and that's not always true with the Base Under Siege. I think we as Doctor Who fans know that. So that's pretty impressive. Pretty strong character work. We'll get into that later. Anyway, the scene where Deep Ando has to sing Mr. Sandman to the lock. Yeah, it's a little bit reused from 42, a little bit, because there's the thing with the... This isn't an original criticism. I've heard this from somewhere else, but there's the thing about the trivia questions because everyone got drunk and now they kind of reuse that here. But I don't even care because it's done differently. It's a song instead of trivia questions, blah, blah, blah. People already like that. People think it's a good scare, and there are a couple other good scares, we let them in, the thing in the freezer. And then because they're blind. Anyway, what the hecky was I talking about? And then the other thing people tend to like is the world building, the thing about, that was my phone again. I'm so sorry. The thing about, the Great Catastrophe and Claire learning about that and how, India and Japan kind of merged. All that stuff's great. And all that stuff is stuff people are talking about. But then usually people say, oh, it's a fun gimmick episode. That's the most praise it'll get. But it's not really that good of an episode. No. This is a genius piece of Doctor Who. I'm not joking. This is a genius piece of Doctor Who. I think it's Mark Gatiss' strongest script, except for An Adventure in Space and Time. Oh, 1 second. Let me look at his scripts to make sure that I'm not just, talking out my bum with that. Okay, this is, in my opinion, it's debatably Mark Gatiss' strongest Doctor Who script. I can't really speak outside of Doctor Who and Sherlock. And this is, his best script ever is An Adventure in Space and Time. And Sherlock, he wrote some of the really good ones. Like he wrote The Great Game, and that's a really good one. But in Doctor Who, it's up there with Crimson Horror for me. That's another one that I really love, but not as much as this one. So I do think this might be his strongest. Of the 9 he wrote for actual Doctor Who, like not including Adventure Space and Time, can't put that into words. That's his best script in general. I don't even care if I haven't seen a lot of his other stuff. That's his best script. But for the 9 episodes of Doctor Who that he wrote, I think this might be his strongest script, at least in my opinion. And that's what's so kind of frustrating, is that like it's one of his least liked. He was going to do a sequel to it, and they canceled it because, I mean, I think that's rumor, but if there was going to be a sequel, the rumor is they canceled it because this episode got poor received. That's wild to me, because this is one of the strongest, and maybe it went over a lot of people's heads. I'm not saying I'm, enlightened. Like I said, I made fun of it too, and I'm just such a loser that that's really mean to myself, but it's kind of true. I have so much free time to just like pour into rewatching Doctor Who and really thinking about Doctor Who all the time. So yeah, let me get this off my chest. I'm a very big Inside Number 9 fan. I'm a very big Reece Shearsmith fan. I have done the work of making sure that my opinion on this story is separate from my love of Reece Shearsmith as an actor and my love of Inside Number 9. There is a part of me, as a big fan of both, that likes to think that this is a secret backdoor episode of Inside Number 9, which I believe started around this time. I think it started in 2014, and this is 2015. So I like the idea, like, we never really know, but I'd like to imagine that this is like Station 9 around Titan. That's cool too. I like stories set within the solar system, but like, out by Saturn or whatever. That's pretty neat. It's close to home, but like still very alien. Anyway, I would like to believe it's like Station Number 9, and this is a secret Inside Number 9 episode. And I'm a very big Reece Shearsmith fan, and I love his character in this. We will get to that later, though. I just want that on the table so that my bias is going in. But be aware, I have done the work of separating. So I'm going to go through my notes, and I've got it playing in the background. If I see something, I think about it, whatever. This is going to be real messy. I don't even care. This is a passionate defense. It is not a well thought out defense. It's not an analytical defense, kind of. But I think that this is an episode that deserves a lot more reconsideration from people. So let's go through it. First of all, it is a found footage episode. It's the only found footage episode. This means it doesn't have an opening titles. It does have a list of the characters at the start, I think, or the actors. And then like they pick a letter from each, so down the way it says Doctor Who. I think that's clever. It's a clever way to have a title card. It does break reality a bit, but at the same time it doesn't. For a reason I'll get to later. The reality of the piece is, until the next time trailer, this episode is like what the real people in the universe will see down on Titan or back on Earth or whatever. And I think that's very interesting. I don't want to give the game away too early, but this is an unreliable narrator story. And a lot of people say, oh, well, that's just a get out of jail free card. The Doctor can run away and say, none of this makes any sense, and it's just a get out of jail free card. No, it's not. That's the point. So the found footage in most stories, the found footage is there to heighten your level of immersion in the piece. It's there to grab you, to pull you in, and really deeply invest you in the story and in the characters, because you're right there with them. This episode, it uses that when it needs to. It can make the scares a bit scarier. It can, there's lots of good bits where like Capaldi's talking right to you, right to the camera, and it's like, ooh, you're right in there with him. It's like the opening of Before the Flood, also from this season. Capaldi talking right down the lens is actually really satisfying because he's such a good performer. But end of the day, outside of those moments of fear and getting in with the actors a bit, which you could really do with a close-up too, kinda, the found footage is there to actually more disconnect you from events. Instead of feeling like you're there with them, a lot of the time you actually just feel like a passive observer. I find, at least I do, I don't, and I think that maybe annoyed people, because it's like, well, why are you doing found footage if you're just going to do a lot of like, security camera stuff? But y'all, that's the point, because this is my thesis about 15 minutes in or so. This is my thesis for why this episode's fantastic. This is a Doctor Who episode about someone making a Doctor Who episode. That's what this is. So you should feel like disconnected, in quotes. You should feel like a passive observer because you're one layer removed. It's not like, an edited, refined piece of content like every other episode. It's raw footage that might not have even really been all that entertaining, but because there's an unreliable narrator and editor putting it together, it makes it a lot more interesting. And this kind of meta level of the Doctor's adventures might actually not be all that interesting to watch if we didn't, have a lot of really playful editing in places and stuff like that. This gets into so at the end, Reece Shearsmith melts into sand. What a transition. But he melts into sand, and a lot of people I have heard say yeah, that bit is scary, but it doesn't make sense because then why were the other ones big rubber suited monsters? Was that just there for the scare? Yeah, it was. And it's not really supposed to be that scary. They're scary when they're low lit, but when you see them a lot, you see them lumbering around, they're silly. And it's around the time that you start realizing how silly they are that the Doctor starts yelling, "None of this makes any sense." And at that point, it is fully reasonable at that point to go, "Oh yeah, I mean, that's dumb." The episode is saying, "Oh, this episode doesn't make sense. Let's just have the Doctor leave because it doesn't make sense." No, that's the whole thing. From the Doctor's perspective, none of it made sense. Now, presumably, in the sequel, we would have seen it all come together. But that didn't happen, and that's a real cry and shame. Mark Gatiss, please have Jodie Whittaker wrap up this mess. Let's do another found footage one. Okay. Reece Shearsmith melts into sand at the end. I gotta focus. Reece melts into sand. And when he does, he says, this video wasn't my alibi. So that earlier scene of the Doctor expositioning at Reece Shearsmith, that is how an episode of Doctor Who always ends, is the Doctor's "Oh, I figured it out, and I'm going to tell you exactly what you did." And it's like a Columbo episode. And, this is a parody of Base Under Siege episodes. It's a parody of Rubber Monster episodes. It's very funny. Because he's I see that's your alibi. You prepared it earlier. And he's yes, I'm going to kill everyone on Titan. They're going to mutate or whatever. This is my patient zero. That's all BS. That is literally all there because that is what would happen in a Doctor Who episode. Instead, and maybe this is common knowledge and people don't like that, but I love that. Because instead, Reece Shearsmith says, I did try to make it entertaining for you. Monsters to fight, close scrapes, all those scary bits. So when they are escaping from a tough situation, it's edited to be entertaining by a character in it. So we don't actually really know what happened during those scenes. And he says that he put in monsters and then he melts away into sand. This implies that the in quotes sand men, the big gaping maw rubber suited monsters, are fake. They're fake monsters that the sand did. It's sentient sleep eye dust. And as silly as you think that is, I'm going to get into why I don't think it is in a second. But if you consider for a moment, the sleep eye dust is the monster, but its plan isn't to, consume the host and become a big gaping maw monster. That's complete bunk that Reece Shearsmith did to get people to watch to the end so that he could infect them with the digital signal. And that infection is going to take over them from the inside out and turn them into Sandmen. But it's a very covert thing. Reece Shearsmith was a Sandman the whole time, an actual Sandman. They actually just look like people. If it seems like I'm reading into this, I really don't think it is. It's implied that he's saying, we gotcha. We're not big, stupid, lumbering monsters made of eye dust. If you stop sleeping and you use the Morpheus, we get inside your head and then we, delete you and you become all sand. And then the infection will spread because more people, you'll show it to all your friends. I don't know. I think that's very clever. The way Reece Shearsmith is, the way he melts away is because the gravitational thing is pulling him apart, but he gets the video out, so everyone else is going to become like that. They're going to become made of sand. as the Doctor says, it consumes the host, so it wouldn't be a big lumbering thing. And presumably, Reece Shearsmith was actually Patient Zero, which is why he's the first to actually be made of sand. I don't know if that, whatever. Maybe I'm reading into that, but all I can see from this is that like those big lumbering things that are blind or whatever, they're designed to be a Doctor Who universe monster. In like by a character in universe, they were designed to be a silly lumbering monster like you would see in the 70s. I think that's fantastic. I think that's so funny. And like, you know, they chase them out of corridors and stuff, right? And all that stuff. Every cliche thing in this episode is done well. It's a really well done Base Under Siege, but also it's a parody of Base Under Siege because like we you know rocket through some of the deaths, which I think is very interesting. We get Chopra separate. Chopra and 474 get separated way early on, and all of their stuff, they both die. Because it doesn't matter, because the point is you're supposed to be intrigued to keep watching, and then it has a non-ending because that's the point. Because it's a parody of a Doctor Who. In Doctor Who episode, you know, we'd see everyone slowly die, and they'd save one of the people and fix the problem. And we get to see all that, except then the Doctor starts figuring it out, and that is when Reece cuts the feed and says, okay, I don't have a lot of time, but here's my wrap-up message. So he's like, I just think that's fascinating. We only get to see what he captured. So yeah, of course, when the TARDIS leaves and, you know, expels all the sand dust, yeah, we're not going to see. I just said sand dust. I'm getting very heated right now. When the TARDIS leaves, we're not going to see what happens next because there isn't any sand to capture it. Okay, let's talk about sand that captures video. That doesn't make sense, except it kind of does, because if we're there to believe, so first of all, the lumbering sandmen are blind, and then people would be like, oh, but the sand is watching them, so why is it's not. They're not. They're there to make themselves seem like monsters, and that you have to have a way to trick them. So of course they'd be blind. That makes for fun, scary scenes. This is just me, right? Like that's the point. And so the sand can see. Again, a lot of it's happening very fast because it's a Base Under Siege and a found footage, and it's 45 minutes. But I don't know. I just feel like the whole thing about it seeing, it makes sense because like it's in your eye. Sleep dust is in your eye. So yeah, of course it can see. I don't know. I'm just saying. Anyway, so let's talk about monsters made of sleep dust, because regardless of if the Sandmen, in quotes, are actually, you know, the actual monsters or a fake monster, Reece Shearsmith is still made of the sand dust. So whatever. Sleep eye dust is the monster of the piece, but it is not a lumbering, stupid monster. And I feel like people would be a lot cooler with that idea of it being a monster if they understood, or that they thought on the same intellectual high concept level that I do, that the big lumbering monsters are made of sleep dust but are supposed to be stupid, and that it's actually a very clever, like, you know, microscopic organism. So it's the whole thing it does. You know what? I'm going to put that on pause for a second because I want to get into tertiary stuff. World building is great. We already talked about that, but it really does pull you into the world. I have to get water again. My goodness. I'm looking at Reece Shearsmith right now, and he's given such a dang good performance. He is so perfect for Doctor Who, and I would love to see him come back to this universe as, you know, the Ronnie or something. I don't care. Just bring him back in like a big recurring role. So anyway, the world building is stellar. The set design is gorgeous. It really looks like a spaceship, and when they go outside and look out the window and you can see Titan, it's really beautiful. Like I said, all the side characters are really well developed. You've got your Chopra, who doesn't like the Morpheus, and that plays in. The thing with the Base Under Siege is each character has to have like one defining, easily grab-onable trait because they're gonna die. So you've got the grunt, you've got the, you know, disbeliever in the current trend. You've got the, you know, captain who could conceivably be a Doctor Who companion because she, you know, is cool with just being on a team with the Doctor. You've got the nervous bloke who runs off and gets killed early in a, half comedy, half horror scene. All this, it's classic. It is classic. And it works really well. And like I say, I remember their names. And I think that says something. Let's talk about 474. Bethany Black does a really good performance. There is something kind of problematic. A lot of, praise was thrown at, first transgender actor. She actually, I think, describes herself as transsexual. I don't know. I am trans non-binary, but I am not an expert in matters, so whatever. But I'm just going to go with transgender for now because I don't know when that quote is from. And my point is, taking someone from the trans community, from the LGBT community, and putting them in the role of, a literal grunt who is called a grunt and is reduced to nothing but a number and is literally, in universe, a disposable person. Kind of yucky, kind of problematic, but I can kind of forgive it because Bethany Black does a really good job with it and brings a lot of depth to a character that could have just been like a one-note kind of half-joke character with a tragic end. Instead, like, she brings a lot of, life to this, grunt, and you really feel for her when she saves Chopra and when she, gives her life to save everyone. She has an understanding for the situation, and a lot of that is conveyed purely in Bethany Black's face in the role. And I have to say this also. I remember when the fan show came out after it, and she was really funny in the interview on the fan show. And this is on the Wikipedia page. I haven't double checked this source, but I love this. On the 14th of November 2015, Black guest starred as 474 in the 9th episode of the 9th season. Oh my god. It's the 9th episode of the 9th season? This is an Inside Number 9 episode. That is so good. It's the 9th episode of the 9th season. Oh my god. It's an Inside Number 9 episode. It's inside the 9th season. It's inside the 9th episode. It literally is Inside Number 9. Oh my god. Okay. Moving on from that. Black guest starred in Sleep No More. Black's character was a grunt, a cloned warrior designed for blah blah blah. Black's co-stars blah blah blah. As a lifelong Doctor Who fan, Black was delighted by her casting and reportedly confused writer Mark Gatiss by asking if the episode would be linked to 1977's The Sunmakers, as both were set in the 38th century. Yeah, Bethany Black. Okay, cool. Are you telling me that you're a big enough Doctor Who fan that you made a reference Mark Gatiss didn't cop to? Are you serious? No wonder you gave everything to that f***ing role. It's good, dude. That's so cool. Okay. So yeah, I a lot has been talked about whether it's problematic or whether it's really good, and I'm gonna side with really good. I think, it's like X-Men, right? You would want to cast someone from a marginalized group of people to play someone from a marginalized group of people, and maybe the specifics aren't perfect, but I think it does an okay job. There's a lot to whine about with Mark Gatiss's writing. I certainly have in terms of representation. Obviously, a lot of Sherlock stuff falls flat. But at the same time, I don't know. I think he does well with this one. Now, let's talk about some clever things, and then I want to get back to the gimmick and the, eye dust. So here's some clever things. When we start seeing stuff from Claire's point of view, at least for me, on first watch, I didn't realize that was even happening. So when we get to the we don't have helmet cams thing, that's a great bit also. When he gets distracted by a conversation, Peter Capaldi gets distracted by a conversation, and he goes, wait, Nagasha, what did you say before? She goes, when? He goes, 1.7 minutes ago. And then she figures out when that was and what she would have said. And then she repeats herself exactly like with the same intonation. It's very funny. Anyway, when we learn about the thing about the helmet cams, and then they don't have them, and then he's like, we have your point of view here too, Clara, because you were in the Morpheus chamber, blah blah blah. It's a great reveal because all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's why Capaldi's been talking down the lens. He hasn't, it trains, the episode gets you to start like paying attention to where the camera is, and that's a really unique thing. And again, it leads to Capaldi talking down the lens, which is a lot of fun. And there's lots, I mentioned that bit earlier, there's lots of sparkling dialogue in this, like lots and lots. Nagata says when they find the Doctor and Clara, consider yourselves, and he goes, part of the furniture, and she goes, under my command. He goes, really? That's very funny. The bit about the Silurians, I do the naming, I'm the Doctor. It's the Silurians all over again. It's very funny. And again, kind of a reference, like the Sandmen are designed to be like, oh, spooky Doctor Who villain, but then they're it's a joke. It's great. And his whole speech about, we slip deep into the arms of Morpheus, never realizing it's saving our lives. Actually a really good, because that's the other thing about this episode. And here's my big point. The biggest clever idea of this is that it is it's against capitalism. Y'all, capitalism sucks. It does a lot of bad things, in my opinion, and the 12th Doctor's on my side because he also hates when there's capitalization. Is that the word? When capitalism infects oxygen, in the story Oxygen, he hates that. And he hates when they do it to Sleep in this one. Except this one came first. And everyone praises Oxygen. And I love Jamie Matheson. And I think he did a very good job with Oxygen. And it's a very different story. But it's also a space station. And it also is about a, regular old bodily function being marketed and sold by a mean company. And I'm just saying, this episode did done it for... I know that it's been done a million times in a million different Doctor Who episodes before this. But there's a notable similarity between Sleep No More and Oxygen, and I love them both because they're very different. The way this episode deals with it, I think, is very clever, because capitalism has taken over sleep. When you meet that deadline, that little Black Mirror-y kind of thing that plays, the woman doing the sales pitch for Morpheus, it really is kind of frightening, because you've got this situation where I cannot believe how much I've talked about this the next time trailer is playing. Holy cow. So what was I talking about? That adds to the world building, that little advert, and the use of the Mr. Sandman song, very clever, very good tie-in. It would have a jingle, and that would be the jingle. And the way that ties into the naming. I just think it's so clever because, if you don't sleep, the sleep will come to kill you. That eye dust, that eye gunk, is... Some people call that sleep. I don't know if that's, a strictly British thing or whatever. I know that we called it, we called it sleep boogers, but, or eye bogeys, or whatever. But, some people just call that sleep. The physical thing, it's called sleep. And so... imagine, what if sleep isn't, the conceptual act of sleeping? It's not you go to sleep. But what if sleep is actually a physical thing that builds up in your eyes? And so if you don't sleep, it just keeps building and then takes over your body. And that is very, unsettling and genuinely scary. And that's why that Reece Shearsmith bit at the end is genuinely, smart and scary. Because it's ooh, he didn't sleep and it took him over. Because he didn't sleep, so sleep took him. I don't know. I don't know if I'm making my point clear here, but I just feel like that is why it makes sense for sleep to be the villain of the piece. Because we need it, and instead of being able to get it in a future where, deadlines become ever more important, which is going to happen, we need to still sleep. Human race is greedy, and it's going to take our sleep away, but it's going to kill us in the process, because without sleep, we'll all freaking die. And that adds, again, to the meta layer, because we're talking about, what if you don't... I feel like I'm, barreling towards a point here. This is an episode where we're, again, one step removed, so we don't get a chance to really rest. At the end, the Doctor just leaves, and it's over. And... I think there's something to be said for it. It feels like if you watched an episode on no sleep. And maybe that is going to sound like me trying to come up with a justification. I really think that works. Anyway, it's unreliable narrator. It's very meta. It's a smart critique of the modern world. It's just a perfect piece of Doctor Who. Far more than a gimmick episode, in my opinion. It's just a perfect piece of Doctor Who. It's a self-commentary on the show. It's a commentary on capitalism. It's a chance for Capaldi to shine. It's funny. It's scary. It's smart. Again, I love Doctor Who episodes that are about Doctor Who, and this one really super is. I don't really know what else to say, and I don't know if I made my points at all clear. I feel like I need to wrap up. I feel like I just yelled into a microphone about an episode I like. And maybe that's okay. I'm deleting my notes. They're gone. Thanks for listening. I have no idea if I'm going to do anything with this. If you want to, I guess subscribe. Because, again, I'm going to try to do weekly content, but it'll probably just be like this. Can I, in my good sense, in my good heart, post a 40-minute conversation with myself? Not really. Not even with myself. Not a conversation. Can I post a rant about loving an episode? Is that a thing I'm allowed to do? I have completely dissociated from the situation. Go watch Sleep No More. It's a there will never be a Lockdown Who simulcast for Sleep No More because no one else likes it. Please go watch it. It's so good. Give it a shot and watch it for what it is. A found footage parody of Doctor Who with a message about capitalism. That's a lot of things, and it pulls it off? I feel like everyone agrees that it pulls that off. But they just don't like that it is that, and I feel like I don't know, give it a chance. I have a podcast, as mentioned earlier. If you like hearing me yell about Doctor Who, we did an April Fool's episode where the right channel, the left channel is my brother talking about Danganronpa with his friends and they're all fans of it. I'm a fan of Doctor Who, obviously. Wouldn't it be wild if I was like, I don't really care for Doctor Who, but anyway, I'm a fan of Doctor Who, so my channel, the right channel, the correct channel, but also the right channel. If you pop out the left earbud when you listen to it, you can just hear me yell about Doctor Who, no microphone, for literally an hour and 20 minutes. So that's fun. I rank the Doctor's eras at each Doctor era. I say some pretty rough things about the 60s in it. So maybe don't go listen to that. Please, hey, stay inside and stay safe. I'm losing my mind. What is this? We're like a month into proper real quarantine here? That makes sense. Follow me on Twitter, @OctoberMore. Follow me on Byte, also @OctoberMore. Subscribe to my podcast, More Opinions. You can find links to all the places at More Opinions. Okay. I don't know, bye. My computer has been unplugged, and I am at 49%, and I think it's because I've been yelling into a microphone for like almost as long as an episode of Doctor Who is. I'm not posting this. Love you, bye.